Hello, this is Damon Pistolka with the Exit Your Way Roundtable. And with me today, I've got Chris Webb. And Chris is a commercial insurance specialist. And we're going to talk today about why it's important to be reaching out to your commercial insurance person. So, Chris, can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure, absolutely. Hey, Damon, I again appreciate you having me on. It's actually quite an honor to be here with you guys, and I'm excited to see what we can unearth here and explain to some business owners, let them know that we're here for them during these times. But to get to your question, I started out actually in the automotive industry out of high school. During that automotive experience, I was allowed to, I started out as a technician, worked my way through service advisor up to service manager, managed a few different other shops as well. And I often look at that as kind of my groundwork, if you will. It allowed me to be customer oriented, understand how to navigate situations, even be on my feet when it has to do with um, negative situations and positive situations, and ways to bring in technicians and give them positive motivational situation or motivational direction,
Yeah.
as well as just growth as a person as a whole. And with that, I ventured into moving up north in Washington, married my wife, and we have a couple kids. Love them to death. I have a daughter and a son, and we moved up north. And when I moved up north, I kind of fell into the insurance industry. It's actually a common phrase used. A lot of people don't seek out the insurance industry. We don't seek out to be an insurance broker, but some of us fall into it. Thankfully, I did. And when I got into the insurance industry, I learned things a little backwards than your standard insurance broker. Your standard insurance broker is going to learn on what's called BOPs, or business owner policies. They're going to be writing things like your mom and pop restaurants to get on their feet and kind of move forward.
Yeah.
Well, I learned in the insurance world on the other side of things, more of the surplus line. So instead of having the insurance company that have already prefabbed and built this policy for this type of business, I was the one that was having to prefab and build this business or build this policy for each line and going from there. So
Okay.
that allowed me to be a little bit more diverse and more understanding of coverage lines and building that, and which brought me to today, and continue to growing my business and allowed me to understand the industry a little bit more thoroughly.
Yeah, because I think that was one of the things that when we first met was, you know, in business, I've talked to quite a few commercial insurance people, and your understanding of coverages and how they can be fit together differently and stuff is really what I thought was unique, and those kind of things. So that's cool. It's really helpful because that's something a business owner just doesn't understand. And when you try to take someone that is writing a policy for a home or a restaurant or a small whatever, and I'm running a $50 million construction company, and that's the real thing there. So that we really, that's one of the things that always drew me to you, and as we got to know each other better, it's really advantageous. So why do you like commercial insurance?
Why do I like commercial insurance? Well, it allows me to be a part of a solution that's constantly overlooked. You have a lot of business owners that go and just buy insurance because it's a necessity. It's something they have to have. There isn't really an end view on it. It's not, they figure they're never going to use it. It's just an expense, right? But when I got into the business, I started noticing that we're constantly looked at as a used car salesman, if you will, not to be
Mhm.
derogatory towards the term, but that's often what we were referred to. And when I saw that there was a problem, because that's not what insurance is designed for, nor is it what a broker versus a captive agent is focused on. A broker, an insurance broker, or at least the ones that I have in my center of influence, we specifically talk about ways to engage with business owners to help them grow, to help them protect themselves, to constantly mitigate risk and make it to where if anything ever does come awry, we're there.
Yeah.
Or if there is something that they're unaware of, we can help them navigate around it. And so with that, it allows me to be more of a consultant, which I absolutely love, and definitely love helping businesses grow and seeing them grow as I'm alongside of them.
Yeah, and I think that um, one of the things that I've really appreciated about your approach is you really specialize in certain kinds of businesses, and that's what's really been helpful. I think when in our discussions around different potential clients is, can you kind of explain the kind of the businesses you really focus on?
Sure. I really hard focus in manufacturing. And with the diversity and complexity in manufacturing, I've picked up construction as as my second tier specializing area. And with that, manufacturing is very, like I said, very complex. There's a lot of difference in coverages. There's a lot of areas where there's exposures. And I think we can get into that a little bit in detail a little bit later if you'd like to. But the complexity is what drove me to it and allowed me to flourish inside of it because
Yeah.
of the ins and outs where people are overlooking areas.
Yeah, because there are, I mean, especially if you're a product manufacturer, I've got to think, because you not only have got the whole part of I'm making this, and then I've got the after I sell the product stuff that that you've got to deal with too. And I'm sure, do you have some things that someone doing that should think about?
Absolutely, manufacturing as a whole is a very high risk situation. When you're manufacturing a product, not only do you have to be concerned about all your supply chains and getting all those products to your point of manufacturing it, but you've also got to consider during the supply chain, the packaging, the labeling, the end user. If something goes wrong on the end user, how am I going to get those products back? Not just a withdrawal aspect or a withdrawal concern, but the tip of the iceberg is often looked at in those situations where a business owner is going to say, well, I have product X and I make it, I send it out, and that's the end of it. And if I need to pull it back because I have a contamination issue or I have a mismanufactured issue, no big deal. I can assume those expenses.
Yeah.
And then, but what they're missing is media. I mean, think about it this way: is Damon, let's say you gave some misinformation, being a coach, being an individual that helps businesses grow to a larger scale. You give some misinformation that gets put out on media, and now Damon all over is being scattered as this guy that doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Well, there's products within insurance that you actually have to specify for knowing it, that mitigate that risk. As soon as you've made a bad choice or something, your product has failed, this is called media remediation. This team that you call, that's 24 hours a day, goes in and mitigates the impact of the media repercussions on your financial
Yeah.
bottom line.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I think you bring up, one of many points that you've talked about with me before, that I never even considered in insurance. Really, never
Right.
even thought about it. And it is very relevant in today's social media filled environment, and also the litigious nature of people in the United States. There's just a lot of things that, just because I've been able to operate this way for quite a while doesn't mean that I don't have a big landmine ready to slap me in that face.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
That's it's funny you bring that up. I'll give you another story real quick if we got a few
yeah,
seconds. I had a great conversation with an individual that was in the aerospace industry. The guy's been designing for, I think it was 15 years or so. He's an engineer. They engineer a lot of different platforms for the aerospace industry. He was considering, hey, I'm going to get into maybe bringing in some wingtips from a foreign country,
yeah,
and I'm gonna put them into production and I'm gonna sell them. I don't need to have a mass production facility or a manufacturing facility, but I can be the middleman, purchase them
yeah,
and sell them to my connections. And we were sitting here having this conversation like I do with all my clients. I constantly encourage them, give me a call, let's just talk. If you're coming up with ideas, let's just talk through it. And I says, hey, so and so, this individual, have you ever thought about the exposure you're getting into? Well, what do you mean? I'm buying a product somebody else manufactured. I'm just selling it. I'm being the middleman. This is no. In the United States, you import any goods, whether it's a watch, whether it's a paper clip, whether it's a wingtip, whatever, you become the manufacturer. You are sole liable for that product failure or a supply. You know, if you sign
Yeah.
a contract with somebody, you're liable for that. He had no idea. Those are situations that really come into that expert mentality where you need to have somebody that is an expert in that field to really understand your true exposures. That way it
Yeah.
doesn't come back and slap you on the head.
Yeah, because that in that case, I mean, it could be, pretty significant if the manufacturer that you bought them from, made with wrong material, whatever. I mean, there's a lot of things that could happen.
Absolutely.
And even in simple products, you could run into a lot of stuff because heck, you could be selling something for kids' toy and it have a contamination issue that could cause a lot of trouble. No doubt about it. Um, so if what is the one thing you think that people should be asking their broker that they probably don't?
That's a tough question. That's pretty broad, actually. Well, actually, it's more focused. You want one question, and I'm going to tell you there shouldn't be a question out there you're not asking your broker. And the reason why is that constant conversation leads us to like what I just said, where we're talking about areas that need to be mitigated. However, right now specifically, there's two areas I would be going back to my broker,
Okay.
or at least a
Oh, you
broker
mean
that I know.
now because of the coronavirus and changing business environment and those kinds of
Absolutely.
things?
People
Yeah.
are in this uproar of concern of cutting costs. I got to figure out how to cut costs. I got to lay off employees. How am I going to sustain this? Whereas some of the simple things are overlooked, like, okay, I just dropped 25% in my sales for the year. I should be contacting my broker, having him adjust my insurance policy. People could save hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars by doing this, depending on their company size, right? And even small situations where they're only saving a few thousand. But the other thing they're missing is the actual exposure side. So think of an iceberg, right? So your iceberg tapers, it's massive underneath the water. It tapers up into the atmosphere, and you see this beautiful iceberg. Well, a lot of business owners think of that tip of the iceberg where they're going, okay, I have insurance, I have all these other things, I'm going to be just fine. But what if they have a gap in their policy?
Yeah.
Then the minor savings is not going to help them, because now all of a sudden their product fails, and
Yeah.
now they have a lawsuit. Now they can't even sustain, let alone the economy and the virus issue. But now they're having a product failure and a lawsuit going on in that area, even for mislabeling, for mispackaging, contamination, a bunch of other things. And so
Yeah.
that's another area I'd be investigating into. I'd be looking for a broker or your own broker to reevaluate, have a simple conversation with them. Let's talk through my exposures. Let me talk from A to Z, and let's mow through this, make sure I'm not exposed, because I can't handle that right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So from what you said, I think one of the things that business owners need to start doing with their commercial insurance person is really explaining their business in detail to their commercial insurance person, because
Absolutely.
the better that you understand their business, the better you can recommend the appropriate coverages and really make sure that you're helping to mitigate the risks that
Right.
they might be seeing that they're not thinking about. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's good to know. And it's important because what I find in a lot of businesses is that insurance is kind of an afterthought, really honestly, even in big businesses. Even though they're spending, they're spending millions of dollars on an insurance policy, and it's the renewal comes up and they go, oh, what can we do to keep the costs lower and start paying it again? So the one thing that I see a lot, and I want to ask specifically about this before the end here, is a lot of businesses I see that grow tremendously. The owners don't think to be in touch with their commercial insurance person to change that policy as they're growing and making sure they're covering the same things. What are some triggers that a business owner should look at to go, okay, this has happened, I should talk to them? Or go ahead.
So I have 3 steps that I typically see business owners go into, that I explain to them why I feel that I should be the third on that step.
Okay.
First off, anytime a business owner makes a decision, he's talking to his business partners. They're evaluating certain situations. They're thinking, this is going to work for us. Let's go down this path. Or they're calling somebody like yourself saying, Damon, we'd like to consider this. What do you think? Right? Then the next person they're talking to is their finance guy, their financial guru, the guy that's looking at their books, the guy that's also going to lend them some money if they need to lend, or tell them, hey, invest this money into here, et cetera. The third person they should be contacting is their insurance broker. Hey, what's the risks associated with this? What is it going to take us to mitigate? Is there any classes that because I do classes as well for my clients, is there any classes that you can provide for us or for our employees to help us mitigate this and explain to our employees the risk associated with this and how they're impacted?
Okay.
And so those are conversations that you should have. You should have the top 3 people or top 3 categories that you go into anytime you're doing anything in your business. And the third one most definitely should be your broker.
Okay. So it is, we should really, as business owners, be including our insurance brokers a lot sooner than, most people. It's an annual review, quite honestly.
Absolutely. I understand that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
right.
that's what we call a generalist broker, or a quota a quoted broker, a broker that basically comes in, throws a number at you, says, okay, we're good, see you later. Or, hey, let me compete for your business. I got you best price. Good job. Let's go. And unfortunately, those guys will die by the sword they draw. And that's just how it works.
Yeah. Well, Chris, this has been really great information you've shared here, and I appreciate you coming on. What's the best way if someone wants to contact you? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Well, you can contact me from my email, which I'm sure we'll put in the
we'll put the email in the comments, and we'll get that stuff out. So we'll do that as well. Can people reach out to you on places like LinkedIn or something like that too?
Absolutely. I am on LinkedIn. I'm a manufacturing insurance guy on LinkedIn. Okay. I definitely am on there constantly. I have a Twitter account. I also have an Instagram account, again, associated manufacturing insurance. So, yeah. Okay,
great. Well, Chris, again, I want to thank you for getting on the show today on the Exit Your Way Roundtable. And we've been talking with Chris Webb here today about commercial insurance and learned a lot. I thank you for being on the show, and look forward to getting you back again and talking about some other stuff.
Sounds good. I appreciate it, Damon. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thanks, Chris.